Okay, so I'm getting ready for something while I'm doing this. I didn't really think through the fact that doing a video every single day is a lot. It takes a lot of time, but here we go. If you're just tuning in, this is where I talk and share a story a day about things that moved me away from conservatism to not being a conservative at all anymore. So I hope the audio for this is not absolutely atrocious, but if I were to categorize the types of things in my life types of moments in my life that moved me away from conservatism, I would probably start with saying some of them were based on moral things. There were things happening in the Republican Party and or within conservative beliefs that pushed me away from it because of moral obligations that I felt like I couldn't really live into my values, being a conservative, etc., etc. Second category, I would say, I gotta catch my breath, hold on. The second category would come from listening to the experiences of other people and not having a pretty big impact on me. The third would be philosophical discussions or disagreements that persuaded me against conservatism. And the fourth, which is what we're talking about today, is gonna be just based on vibes, just not a ton of like super deep thoughts going into it, but more just my own gut and feelings. So let's get into it. So back to when I was in high school and I was working on this campaign. I was 17 years old. I was working on Alex Mooney's campaign. He was a representative, still is a representative in West Virginia, which normally I wouldn't like specifically call out people's names in these stories necessarily, but he's an elected representative. He chose to be in the public eye. I think that's fine. So I was working on his campaign, and my frustrations in this story are mainly based in the political process, politicking, the way that people like go out and encourage people to vote in general. This is not necessarily specific to Republicans, but yeah, this is just based on vibes. You guys know that. That's the story. So I in particular didn't love the way that he ran his campaign. Did a lot of the same things that people do on other campaigns, not like just specific to his own campaign, but there was stuff like we would call people late into the night doing phone banking, so much to the point that I remember I called and an older woman picked up the phone and I was like, hi, I'm so-and-so with like the Alex Mooney campaign, blah, blah, blah. And she stopped me and she was like, this like very like shaking voice and was like, I have gotten up so many times to go all the way upstairs to get my phone. I'm old, I don't have good mobility, and you guys keep calling me, and no matter how many times I tell you to stop calling me, you continue to call me. I was gonna vote for the guy, but I'm not voting for him anymore because I'm so sick of this. Which I was like, oh, man, like I felt horrible. And I told the other people that I was working with that I wasn't going to continue to call people after a certain time because I just felt like that was really rude and disrespectful. And other people agreed with me and thought that that was a good idea, and we decided to stop doing that, which was cool because it made me feel like, okay, I have a little bit of agency here. I don't have to just like follow the rules. I can like stand up for myself. There's things that I don't like. Another thing was like I don't know, just like politics is so like fake and silly, and like the program that we were using to call people was like this automated system, and it eventually like timed out at a certain point. So I was on the phone with this woman, I was having this conversation, she was like telling me about how her son had recently died and like her like grieving through that and like all of this like emotional stuff. And the system we used kind of like timed out, hung up the call with her, and I tried to find a way to call back. There was no way to do it because it's like an automated system, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, this is so impersonal, like this is just like, we're not actually getting the chance to speak to people, like how, blah, blah, blah. That's not specific to Republicans at all. That's just like specific to the way that like campaigns are run, and you don't really have the ability to like talk to every single person for like an hour. But I was like bereaved at 17 that this kept happening, of like not being able to really feel like I was actually having good conversations with people. The rushedness of everything with politics just sucked. I hated it. And so the guy that we were advocating for, campaigning for, like, honestly, and I can't even tell you, like, specifics. I can just say that I kind of just got, like, a gut feeling of, like, I just don't really like this guy. And not in, like, a creepy old man kind of way. Like, not like that. Very nice guy. But I was like, there's just something about this that, like, doesn't sit well with me. And it's funny because he ended up actually being a professor of mine, like, a few years later, and stuff. And, like, never had a bad experience with the guy, ever. Like, truly just going on vibes. And I just kind of felt that way. I was like, I don't know, there was just, like, so much, like, by the time I got to the end of that experience, I was like, you know, I don't think, like, if I had the ability to vote, I don't think I'd vote for this guy. Like, I really genuinely, like, don't think I would have voted for this guy. And that was, like, that was interesting that I was feeling that way. And I feel like my gut feeling about not really, like, particularly loving this guy felt very vindicated in that, like, the last time I've ever seen anyone write about him was he was on a list of, like, very few people who had decided to vote against giving hurricane relief money to the people impacted by Helene. Which a lot of, like, friends of mine were, like, personally impacted by that hurricane, and it was, like, a really, really bad hurricane, like, obviously. And so I'm like, damn, like, boo this guy. like I kind of feel like I don't know, my vibe check on that felt, like, valid, just in the fact that I was like, man, why won't this guy vote on something as simple as giving, like, aid to people that have just gone through a hurricane, you know? So once again, this is not deep, this is not super compelling, but that sets the mentality of where I was feeling about politics in general when I was about to start my freshman year of college. So we can get into those stories tomorrow, but just to kind of set that up a little bit of how I was feeling about politics. And truly, like, no shade to this man. I'm sure he, like, felt like he had a super valid reason for not voting on giving relief money to people that had just gone through, like, an extremely horrible tragedy. There's, like, you know, there's Republicans who always come up with a reason for it or whatever. I'm sure he would have some sort of thing to say about that. But I don't know, man. It was just, you know.